Welcome, brothers and guests, to the 2021 Virtual Spring Lead. I'm so excited to be here with you this weekend. I'm Tricia Smith, your Grand President. Today, we have a lot of exciting updates and announcements to share with you. While we are not all together in person, I'm so excited for the opportunity these virtual events do provide us, where we can continue to network, share ideas, and stay connected. To say that 2020 was a year to remember would be an understatement. Last year not only taught us how to pivot in an instant, but how to be resilient, patient, and how to look at everything we do through a new lens. As your chapters transition from traditional in-person meetings and events to virtual meetings and get-togethers, your members use the virtual environment to enhance their learning and knowledge through more online training and webinars. And all of our members, as well as our collegiate and alumni chapters, use this virtual environment to connect with brothers around the world. We will feel the effects of COVID-19 personally, professionally, in our chapters and throughout our organization for years to come. And although we have been working through a pandemic, it's important to recognize that what we have accomplished this year. Our organization and chapters were able to successfully operate through a pandemic and in a virtual environment. Chapters implemented a new pledge education program this fall. We enhanced our risk management policy to better support our members and created a task force to create a better, more applicable individual disciplinary policy to support our members' needs in today's collegiate environment. Delta Sigma Pi and our members also focused on DEI concerns within our organization and addressing opportunities for change and growth. And we began the creation of a national DEI task force. As brothers, we recognize the significance of these changes. Ensuring a supportive and inclusive environment for all organizational members, including pledges and prospective members, is extremely important to Delta Sigma Pi. In order to continue to direct our own future as an organization, we must continuously evaluate our processes and ensure that we are creating an environment that defines us as Delta 6. Since 2016, we've continued to make progress on our strategic priorities. Our priorities on member education, growth, engagement, and organizational success continues to evolve and develop as we continue in this virtual environment. Today's campus environment and societal challenges call for strong leadership, understanding, and accountability by both our students and our volunteers. And we continue to develop our programming, our chapter and organizational initiatives, and operational support. We not only support our members in their professional and personal development, but we enhance our chapters and our fraternity overall. But even more than that, since 2016, we have evolved. And as we look into the new biennium, we are already looking at how our strategic priorities can be advanced throughout the upcoming 5 years and identifying how the core values of Delta Sigma Pi serve as the foundation of our priorities. Delta Sigma Pi is hosting virtual events weekly. These events provide an amazing experience of bonding with other brothers and volunteers around the world, and the opportunity to develop skills to assist in your current and future leadership positions, as well as your own personal and professional growth. And be sure to visit Deltasig University at dsp.org for additional programming that you can view on your own schedule. If you're new to Delta Sigma Pi, getting started in a leadership position, or even if you just need a refresher or two, we have you covered. Within Deltasig University, you'll find Delta Sigma Pi 101, which includes helpful topics for chapter management, presentations, and webinars on items such as operations, event planning, member motivation, and more. These videos, presentations, and resources are developed to help deepen your understanding, sharpen your skills, enable you to be a more engaged member and more effective leader in Delta Sigma Pi, as well as prepare you for professional opportunities in your current or future career. Also, be sure to check out the Certified Deltasig Leader Program. The Certified Deltasig Leader Program, or CDL, is a great way to build and demonstrate the leadership skills you gain in Delta Sigma Pi The program, although geared towards alumni, is helpful and suggested for any brother considering leadership positions. And if you haven't already, be sure to download the official Deltasig education app, DSP Link. Use the app to stay connected with other Deltasigs, to learn more about our partners who support Delta Sigma Pi in our programs, scholarship and grant opportunities available through the Leadership Foundation, and how to support our National Service Initiative Ronald McDonald House. Now, as most of you have probably already heard, the January 30th board meeting, the Board of Directors also made the decision to transition the 2021 Grand Chapter Congress to take place virtually. Grand Chapter Congress elections and legislation will still be held virtually in 2021. Dates and times are to be determined, and registration details will be shared once finalized. An additional special in-person meeting of the Grand Chapter has also been called for July 13th through the 17th in 2022 at the Hilton in Cleveland, Ohio. In 2023, we intend to return to our regular GCC cycle, which includes August 16th through the 20th, 2023 in Houston, Texas, and August 6th through the 10th, 2025 in Palm Springs, California. In chapters, be sure to apply for chapter awards. Showcase and be recognized for all the amazing work that you and your chapter members have done this past year. In fact, today we will hear from Elliott Ferguson, our 2018 Career Achievement Award recipient, where he will be sharing his story about leading through change and that of the City of Washington, D.C. and hospitality industry during the past year. Chapters and all of us can learn from his experiences and find opportunities to lead through change too. And following Elliott's presentation, he will be joined by Jillian Gartner, National Professional Development Chair, for some Q&A. In a little while, we will be announcing our 2021 Provincial and National Collegian of the Year. But before we do that, I would like to announce to you the 2021 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. The Deltasig Lifetime Achievement Award is presented biannually to a brother deemed to exemplify the spirit of the fraternity by his or her lifetime of service, support, brotherhood, and involvement. This individual is a member in good standing, has demonstrated an enduring desire to continue to serve the collegiate chapters, alumni chapters, and international organization through their time, financial support, and personal contribution. And this person is nominated by any chapter or individual member of the fraternity. So it is my honor to announce our 2021 Delta Sigma Pi Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Joelle Burlap. Joelle has served Delta Sigma Pi in numerous capacities during her lifetime. Joelle and her husband Jeff are among the top lifetime donors to Delta Sigma Pi, having donated over $100,000 to Leadership Foundation during their lifetime, something only a few others have accomplished as well. One of the most notable positions Joelle has served in was as Vice President of Finance on the Board of Directors from 2003 to 2007. In addition to being a Vice President of Finance of the committee that she served on in relation to that, she has been an active member of other committees over the years, including the COVID-19 task force last year. Joelle is very active at the local level as well in Houston, Texas, and has been a familiar face at national events since 1989 when she attended her first Grand Chapter Congress. There is much more to Joelle's list of accomplishments, including the brothers she has mentored and supported throughout the years. And we look forward to sharing her Deltasig story with all of you and celebrating her and all of her achievements virtually, and especially when we can get together in person. As a friend and a brother, congratulations, Joelle, and thank you for all you do for Delta Sigma Pi. Well, it's time to continue on with more of the program. Since you didn't get to see us in person at national events or chapter meetings, we want to take this opportunity to introduce you to some of your central office staff and National Board of Directors. Thank you for joining us today, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the program.
Welcome to the beautiful central office of Delta Sigma Pi, home to our terrific staff and a museum of our most precious artifacts, documents, and memories. This is where your staff works hard doing our part to keep DSP running smoothly. Well, because of the pandemic, our homes are where we do most of the work right now, but usually the central office is full of energy and activity. Currently under the direction of Executive Director Bill Schilling, the guy with all the dad jokes, we have 15 staffers working together to manage the day-to-day operations of the fraternity and Leadership Foundation, including the organization's finances, chapter and member support and education, record keeping, and communications and outreach. Hi, I'm Jeremy Levine, and I serve as the Chief Operating Officer. The staff members that you're likely most familiar with is our Chapter Services team, including our Senior Director of Membership Growth and Expansion, Associate Director of Chapter Services, and of course, our Educational and Leadership Consultants. Though you or your chapter has likely communicated with one of these fine individuals, have you gotten the chance to really meet them? Well, today's your lucky day. Speaking of luck, did you know garden gnomes are a symbol of good luck? It's a little gnome fact. I'm sorry. I'll save the jokes for Bill.
I am Dale Clark. I've been working at your central office for almost 29 years. I am your Senior Director of Membership Growth and Expansion.
My name is Tyler Havens, and I serve the fraternity as the Associate Director of Chapter Services.
I'm Dazzle Flores, and I serve as an Educational Leadership Consultant for Delta Sigma Pi.
My name is Haley Spellman, and I'm an Educational Leadership Consultant for the fraternity.
I'm Chelsea Fix, and I serve as an Educational and Leadership Consultant for Delta Sigma Pi.
One of the interesting things that you may not know about my role is that I oversee the travel schedules for our traveling consultants, our Educational Leadership Consultants. We try to meet with all of your chapters and every chapter of Delta Sigma Pi at least every 4 terms. You should hopefully get to see one of us, whether it be in person or in our current world virtually.
And something that you may not know about consultants is we actually give tours of the central office to members and guests when they stop by.
Something you may not know about my position is that consultants maintain archives and displays that are located in the central office.
Something you may not know about my position is that consultants inventory regalia trunks when they're sent back to the office. DSP has given me so much room to grow professionally and personally. One thing I love about being a part of DSP is the community of brothers willing to support you at any given moment.
Is being able to attend national events and getting to meet new brothers.
The network that I've been able to build with brothers across the entire U.S. in the few years that I've been initiated and a part of the fraternity.
One thing that inspires me and helps me, encourages me, is that I've been to most of your campuses and I have seen where you go to class and where you hold your activities. I look forward to meeting you all at a future event in person.
One piece of advice that I always give chapters is that no matter who you come in contact with, whoever you interact with, you are always recruiting. You are building a coalition of people who believe in Delta Sigma Pi and what it has to offer.
One piece of advice I'd give to any chapter, no matter the size or the years of establishment, is to utilize all the resources available either from your institution or from the national fraternity.
Is the importance of getting involved in the chapter. You're going to get out what you put into the fraternity, so the more that you're going to put in, the more that you're going to get out. Whether you're a collegiate or an alumni, I would highly suggest getting involved because it's going to make your Delta Sig experience.
You have the power to achieve anything if you set your mind to it.
And I give you this one piece of advice, and that is to ensure that all of your faculty and business students know that you exist on your campus.
Our board of directors is also really sad that we can't be traveling as well. We all miss seeing everybody live at things like lead, initiations, installations, and more. Realizing they're sad, I always try and cheer them up a little bit with some humor, such as, When do jousting tournaments end? At nightfall. Nightfall. Why wouldn't the lobster share his treasure? Because he was a little shellfish.
The jokes just never end. As we head towards a new biennium, our terms on the board of directors are coming to a close. We'd like to take some time to share a little bit about what we do. Tricia, as our grand president, is responsible for providing leadership and direction to the fraternity board and staff and guiding our philanthropic operations as a trustee of the Leadership Foundation. When she's not volunteering her time to Delta Sigma Pi, she provides strategic leadership for member engagement at an international nonprofit professional association.
Not to mention our Vice President of Finance, Jody Show, who in this role serves as the Chief Financial Officer of Delta Sigma Pi and is responsible for ensuring our budget, investment strategy, and financial progress. In addition to traveling in her volunteer role on the board, Jody also frequently travels for work and travels for fun with other Delta Sigs, which I know she's been missing.
And Onuka serves as our past grand president. He leads us through our board meetings in our virtual world and is working tirelessly to ensure every grand officer position has a nomination, all while providing strategy and governance consulting to various nonprofits.
Christian serves as our 2019 Koi, which after a year like 2020 feels like forever ago. She's constantly recording couples' memories on their wedding day, being a videographer, or also teaching volleyball at the same time. But one of the best things she does, and she always does, is stress the fact that we need blankets during our long board meetings.
And Cody, our 2020 Koi, the best thing to happen in 2020. Well, maybe not quite, because he did become a dad to an adorable little boy that year. Although I do think that means he officially needs a sock subscription because he never matches them. And we also serve with 5 PVPs who are both outstanding people and remarkable professionals.
As PVPs, we're responsible for a number of things. Essentially, we serve in 2 functions. One is strategically focused by serving on the board of directors. The other is operationally focused by leading our provincial teams and chapters to support your goals. But did you know we have other things to focus on, like South Central PVP Mark. He is an avid outdoorsman and was recently married during the pandemic.
And Corey Stopka, our North Central PVP, who is the new operations business manager at Cameron's Coffee, and is a new dad, and loves visiting national parks, and pretends to be a handyman at home.
And our Northeastern PVP, Dan, likes to run and spend time with his family.
And did you know that our Southern PVP, Carrie, is enthusiastic about the movie and TV film industry and global film locations? I wonder how many sets Carrie can name that were filmed in Georgia.
And our PVP Crystal, who likes to drink coffee, craft, spoil her 2 dogs, and travel. She's trying to visit all 50 states, though COVID has put a little bit of a wrench in that.
2020 was quite the year to remember, and 2021 brings new adventures for all of us. New resolutions and goals that we want to achieve. This year, I'm excited for the opportunities held by Delta Sigma Pi and seeing so many brothers volunteer for different roles and stepping forward to run for elected positions.
I'm looking forward to connecting a bit better with our chapters in the Southern Province and assisting with transitions as we enter a DSP election year.
I'm excited about our next set of strategic priorities.
And be a part of the continuing conversations about how we can strengthen DEI within our fraternity.
And fraternally, I'm looking forward to building the bench of our next fraternal leaders.
And to seeing how Delta Sigma Pi applies learnings from 2020 towards a terrific post-pandemic fraternity experience.
And see Delta Sigma Pi continue to grow and prosper. Along with our fraternal goals and resolutions, we also have a lot of personal ones too, like getting back to watching professional sports, especially blues hockey.
I'm looking forward to a new career path in film tourism. I may even write a book.
Like to read more in 2021.
I'm looking forward to more time reading something other than the news.
And personally, I'm ready to jump back into a regular fitness routine.
A personal goal of mine is to be the best father possible to my new son.
For me, I want to spend more time with my new grandson, Eli, who was born during the 2020 lead in Denver.
And together, we can help each other achieve our goals. We hope to see all of you in person at an event soon. But until then, we hope to hear from you virtually. Share your goals with us. Let's see what we can achieve in 2021 together.
What can one little tab do for families with children in the hospital? On its own, nothing. But when joined by others, this tiny piece of aluminum has the power to transform, to bond, to heal, to add up to one big way to help keep families close, provide the warmth of a home-cooked meal, and help them share their comforting touch. Because when you save your pop tabs, they're recycled, which supports families staying close to their child at a Ronald McDonald House, so they have a place to rest and relax, so they can focus on their child in the hospital. It all starts with your one tab, joined by another, and another, and another. That's why your tab matters. Add to it. The power of one starts with you.
Hi brothers, my name is Jessica Boucher and I'm proud to serve as your National Community Service Chair. The power of a pop tab is amazing. Did you know that any pop tab counts? Pull those tabs from beverage cans, soup cans, vegetable cans, and even cat food cans. As a fraternity, we have set a goal to collect 1 million pop tabs as an organization among other Ronald McDonald House initiatives. The Cleveland Ronald McDonald House has a Morgan Stocks Collect a Million Club. If we are able to collect 1 million pop tabs, which is 1,000 pounds, then we'll earn our spot on their plaque that hangs in their house. The good news is you don't have to bring all those pop tabs to Cleveland. Your chapter can collect pop tabs and turn them in to any of your local Ronald McDonald houses. Once you have turned them in, please submit the donation as a community service event in the hub and include the name of the house and the amount of pop tabs in pounds that your chapter donated. We are currently at approximately 40,000 pop tabs, so please submit your donations in the hub to help us reach our goal. Please report the donations as you have them so we can track our progress. The province that collects the most pop tabs will be recognized as well, so get the word out to your brothers, friends, and family members and help us reach our goal of 1 million, because together we can make a big impact.
Hi, and thanks for joining. My name is Tim Augustine, a trustee of Delta Sigma Pi's Leadership Foundation and a member of the Foundation's Executive Committee. I initiated a Beta Pi chapter at Kent State University, and professionally, I'm an owner and partner at Atwa LLC. The Foundation is proud to financially support the fraternity's educational programs through annual grants. One special part of these grants is the ability to sponsor world-class keynote speakers like you're going to hear today. Our speaker today is Elliott Ferguson. Elliott Ferguson is the president and CEO of Destinations DC and is the 2018 recipient of Delta Sigma Pi's Career Achievement Award for his exceptional career in travel and tourism management. Initiated in Kappa Chi at Savannah State in 1987, Elliott went on to earn a degree in marketing and business administration. Remaining in Savannah, Ferguson became the director of sales of the Savannah Convention and Visitors Bureau, and just a few years later, he became vice president of sales for the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, where he stayed for more than 10 years. In 2001, Brother Ferguson made his move to Washington, D.C., and served as senior vice president for Destination DC, taking over as president and CEO in 2009, the same year Grand Chapter Congress was held in D.C. Brother Ferguson attended Grand Chapter Congress with an official city welcome and presented the fraternity with the Silver Bowl on behalf of President Obama. Ferguson serves on the board for the U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, the Downtown Business Improvement District, the Greater Washington Sports Alliance, the Military Bowl, Historical Society for Washington, D.C., and the Franciscan Monastery, USA. He is the chairman of the D.C. Business Coalition, a member of the Hospitality Alliance, and a member of Brand USA's Marketing Advisory Group. His many memberships in the industry include American Society for Association Executives, Professional Conference Management Association, and Destinations International. Please welcome Brother Elliott Ferguson.
I really appreciate you running through the accolades and things in which I've done in my career in the past and currently. And today I'm going to really talk about leadership, about leading in difficult times and through challenges. You know, I've been in Washington for about 19 years, and I moved here right after 9/11, in some cases probably before most of you were born. And, you know, we've dealt with everything from 9/11 to anthrax, to downturns in terms of government, to sniper shutdowns, et cetera. And leading through challenging times in a city like Washington, the nation's capital, arguably one of the most powerful cities in the world, is one of those things you just have to deal with, in addition to the fact that people really want to come to Washington, D.C. Now, Destination D.C., who are we and what do we do? We're an organization that focuses primarily on economic development. In a nutshell, that's who we are. But we focus on it through a different lens, whereas most economic development organizations are looking at businesses relocating, people relocating, starting jobs and careers and paying taxes and et cetera, et cetera. Our economic development is tied to people physically visiting Washington for 3 to 5 days, domestic tourism, international tourism, business travel, or major conventions or congresses, and then leaving and other people coming. So our economic development is tied to heads and beds, butts and seats, and economic impact through people that are physically visiting Washington for a period of time. So Destination DC is also an organization with over 1,000 members, and they pay us membership dues simply because they want leads for groups that are looking at bringing business to Washington, D.C., conventions and small meetings, or activities such as weddings and sporting events and things of that nature. We're a private nonprofit organization, and I bet you if you look up convention and visitor bureaus in your own city, you'll find out that in most cases, your city has an organization similar to ours, whereas we work closely with government, but we're separate from government in terms of what we do. But we are solely focusing on economic stimulus, 80,000 people being employed in Washington, D.C., and the $900 million in taxes in which we generate on a regular basis. Now, the key thing for us is we're looking at what happens when the government shuts down. In a case like that, we focus on the fact that DC is still open for business. There's not a padlock on 395 coming into the city. We focus on the fact that the Smithsonian's, which are part of DC government, will be closed if the DC government is shut down. There are still other museums, nightlife, sporting events, restaurants that still remain open. So the federal government being shut down does not mean DC is actually not open for business. And we focus on our marketing in that regard simply because we get tons of questions, saying, hey, I want to reschedule my business trip or my trip to Washington, D.C. because I hear the government is shut down and there's nothing to do. On the contrary, there's still things to do in Washington, D.C., and that's what we focus on. Now, in addition, we are, for the first time, dealing with, of course, like everyone else globally, a pandemic. And this is a unique time for us because, as we all have heard, there's not been a pandemic of this magnitude from a global perspective since 1918, so over 100 plus years ago. The unique difference between what we're dealing with now and something like a government shutdown is that this is not just specific to Washington, but this has a global negative effect. Interestingly enough, also a time for us to get our government officials to understand why tourism is important. As we look at pre-COVID numbers, specifically in 2019, we had nearly 25 million visitors come to Washington, D.C., which is nothing to sneeze at. $8.2 billion in economic impact, and as I referenced earlier, rounding up about $900 million in local taxes being generated by this industry. And you can also see the number of jobs supported, the wages that are tied to this industry, and the fact that visitors support a significant amount of the jobs that are created in Washington, D.C. So quite frankly, tourism and hospitality is a big deal. As we look at tourism, we look at international and domestic visitors, but we also focus on major conventions. We're the organization that is responsible for bringing major conventions to Washington. I remember a few years back, Delta Sigma Pi was looking at the DMV, which is DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and they chose Virginia to host their meeting. In most cases, they'll contact an organization like ours, and we'll compete against other cities to effectively win that meeting coming to Washington, which is a big deal. But what happens when meetings don't come? Nearly $600 million in economic loss for the city. Domestic visitation continues to fall. Visitor spending is down. And all the things I've referenced earlier in terms of the fact that we are focusing on economic impact and economic development are challenged and compromised simply because of this pandemic. So as you can imagine, our goal right now is to continue to focus on rebounding post the pandemic in which we're still dealing with. And of course, the vaccine, new leadership in the White House, and other combination of things are going to make a difference as we move forward. Safety and security continue to remain big issues as it pertains to Washington. Needless to say, gun laws in the US are convoluted and people have different opinions about them. But the reality is, if there's a mass shooting in Las Vegas, which unfortunately happened a few years ago, then suddenly we get concerns from groups that are coming to Washington, D.C. as to whether or not D.C. is safe. So as you can imagine, safety, security continue to remain an issue. And then when you look at what happened in Washington on January the 6th, that's a different thing. That is unfortunately something that the global community looks at and scratches their head and says, how can this happen in the United States, the world superpower, the country that we all want to emulate and or become the superpower? How can that happen in Washington, D.C.? And suddenly safety becomes an issue again for us as a destination. Should we come to Washington, D.C.? Should we send our 8th grader? Because we all know that when you were in 8th grade, more than likely you came to Washington chaperone, and in some cases it was the first trip you took without your parents. Is DC safe to send my kids to? Now the reality is there's still a pandemic which compromised tourism, but the optic and reality of what happened on January 6th is a big issue for us as a destination. Seeing the 25,000 National Guard, which we appreciated them being here, in the city, seeing barbed wire fences, seeing all those variables tied to security in the nation's capital, in Washington, D.C., in the United States, was unfortunately an optic that took a lot of time and will take a lot of time for us to deal with. You know, the insurrection, the riots, you know, there's a fundamental difference between what happened on January 6th and unfortunately some of the circumstances tied to the Black Lives Matter protests, which yes, there was damage to the city, but the image, which was negative, still did not deter people from wanting to come to Washington. Now keep in mind, we're still dealing with a pandemic which continued to compromise visitation to Washington. Fortunately for us, right after January 6th, just a couple weeks later, really for us last week, we were able to celebrate the inauguration of the 46th president. And unfortunately, we did not see the economic impact of visitors coming to the city, staying in hotels, eating in restaurants, using transportation, and the list goes on and on. The spectacle tied to the fireworks, the performances, and just the peaceful feeling of that day, no matter what your politics are, was a positive shot in the arm for Washington, D.C. Whereas 2 weeks earlier, we were dealing with insurrection and security concerns, then later folks were very proud of how Washington was displayed, which we're going to continue to use that in our marketing because that's the way we want to display Washington on a regular basis. We have offices in 4 different countries, and in those countries, they were giving insight, sharing with us some of the concerns that people had in terms of traveling to Washington, D.C., even though we know that international travel won't return probably for a long time, unfortunately. The thing about Washington that we appreciate the most is the fact that no matter what happened on January 6th, which God help us never happens again. There are a lot of organizations in Washington, D.C., and the DMV that focus on safety. Just look at the total number of emblems that you have on the screen. In most cases, if you're whatever city you're in, you probably have 3 or 4 policing agencies. But in Washington, D.C., now there's a concerted effort, as you saw during the inauguration, to make sure that all these agencies talk to each other, focus on safety and security, not only in Washington, but in the US as a whole. And that is something that we continue to focus on when people show concern about coming to Washington. Arguably, after something happens like January 6th, we become probably one of the most safest cities. And the key is for these organizations is to make sure that Washington is safe 365 days of the year, being more proactive versus reactive, which is something we want to focus on. Now, I mentioned racial injustice, and this is a subject that I've been closely attached to for a variety of reasons. It's obvious that I'm a Black male. I've grown up in the US. I've lived on the West Coast, was born on the West Coast, and I've lived on the East Coast. I've lived in the South. And I also chair an organization called the US Travel Association. And within our organization, within our industry, there are about 700 organizations that do what we do in terms of promoting their destinations, called destination management organizations or convention and visitor bureaus. Unfortunately, there are less than 10 that are Black, and that number is similar in terms of the number of females. So in my 30 years in this industry, I have been a double minority for a variety of reasons. And then chairing the US Travel Association, when I joined about 10 years ago, I recognized the fact that on the board, there were 2 Black people in the room and I was one of them. It was a good old boys club. And to a certain extent, that still remains an issue. And what happened last year is that it was kind of an awakening for me. I had to vacillate from what I was taught, wait your turn, stay in line, be respectful, to being more reactive and more of a leader in terms of some of the things that are concerns to me. Talking about racial injustice, white privilege, all the things in which we've been hearing about in the news, but also bringing context to those statements, not to dissuade people from getting actively involved, but really getting them to understand what these things mean, what it means, and what it feels like to be Black in America. So I kind of went on a campaign with, being interviewed in terms of some of my views, taking part in a video with some of my peers, really talking about what it's like being Black in America and challenging the industry to be more vocal and more purposeful with their leadership, with their board of directors, with the people in which they hire, and how they market their destinations, and to understand some of the inequities within the Black community, specifically tied to slavery, but what continues to happen well over 150 plus years after slavery. And really, quite frankly, getting folks to think about it a lot more and to do better. I had to do better. I had to be more vocal. I have to do some soul searching as to what I need to do to represent the industry, what I wanted within the US Travel Association, and get them to understand that the times and what we need them to focus on are not tied to these cliques or these old ways of doing business, and that the world is moving forward. And not only Black people are interested in what happened during the Black Lives Matter movement, but younger people of all ethnic races and backgrounds are interested in doing better, having these important and uncomfortable conversations, and making sure that we're dealing with this in a purposeful and a positive way. So the media campaign was big for us, and the conversation has to continue simply because the younger generation, such as yourself, as well as those generations such as me, I'm about 10 years from the official retirement age. I need to make sure that I look back and see that I've made a positive difference for those that are looking at entering this industry. Hospitality is one of those industries where, sure, there's a lot of diversity, but it's usually at the bottom of the pyramid. But as you go up the pyramid and go to the C-suite, then you see fewer and fewer opportunities or fewer people that are diverse. And in a lot of cases, people are leaving the industry simply because they don't see the opportunities within hospitality. So it's more than what we saw in hospitality over the summer as we looked at the senseless murder of George Floyd, and then of course all the continuous issues tied to policing and just inequities as a whole. But this is something that's extremely important to me, extremely important from a hospitality perspective, because the thing that I say the most, and the reason why I love, well, one, I love this industry. Again, I've been in it for 30 years. I've been in it for 30 years because I love what I do. And one of the things I love the most is the fact to travel internationally and to meet people from different backgrounds and to, quite frankly, hear their perspective of how they view America, how they view Black America, how they view our politics, and for me to understand more about their cultures. We all have our prejudices, and the thing that I love about international travel and the exchanges with international people is that we get to understand a lot more the things that make us that are our likenesses, if you will, but also appreciate our differences, and that helps to break down a lot of the barriers that are there. I know when I go to Asia, I'm kind of, especially if I'm in China, I go to parts of the country that have never seen a Black person, or may not have ever seen a white blonde person with blue eyes. And so we become spectacles simply because they're just not used to seeing us. And you know, I get it. And I see that there's an opportunity to educate those that are in the media from an international perspective, those that focus on travel internationally, to get them to not only come to Washington and visit our monuments, memorials, and museums, but challenge them to visit our neighborhoods, whereas there's a very thriving Black community with a lot of amazing Black history. And of course, the museums that are here that represent some of those caveats tied to history, be it the Frederick Douglass House, the African American Museum at the Smithsonian, the African American Civil War Museum, and neighborhoods that were tied to the African American experience back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and of course the riots of the 60s. But also to recognize that Washington is a destination that has over 185 embassies. And with that, you've got a lot of people from all over the world. And looking at me standing next to another person that happens to be Black, that person can be from Madagascar, or that person can be from the UK. And there's no such thing as one size fits all. And that's the beauty of international travel and the beauty of being in a city like Washington, whereas the diaspora is much larger in terms of cultural and diverse and rich diversity in our city. And these are the things in which we market. So Delta Sigma Pi, I joined way back in the 80s. Again, I was initiated at Savannah State University, the first primarily African-American chapter within Delta Sigma Pi at that time. And we were very proud of being a part of the fraternity. I remain proud of being part of the fraternity and being able to engage and talk to students such as yourselves, as well as meet with other peers and of course the leadership at Delta Sigma Pi to further enhance, or in some cases encourage, members of the fraternity to become interested in our industry, because it's more than just working in a hotel or working in a restaurant. Or, if you work for a restaurant chain, you can be an architect, you can be an interior designer, you can have an accounting degree. The list goes on and on and on in terms of the opportunities within the industry. So I'm pleased to be able to share some of this, and of course, thankful to the leadership of Delta Sigma Pi for giving me this opportunity to once again address you all, the great students and members of Delta Sigma Pi, as you come into the industry, whatever industry that is, and challenge you to continue to think differently, to run towards things that perhaps you're not comfortable with. And there's just so much that I've been able to learn through my membership in Delta Sigma Pi. And of course, giving back is a large part of that. So Destination DC, if you want to know more about us, washington.org is our website. My email address is below. If you want to reach out to me at any time, feel free to.
Hi, Elliott. Thanks for
Hey,
joining
Gillian.
us.
It's definitely my pleasure.
And thank you for sharing your story with us. I thought it was fantastic. And we've had a lot of Q&A or questions come in, and really excited to chat with you a little bit more. So
you know what? It's my pleasure. And let me start off by saying I realized that I had on a black turtleneck when I made that video. I have more than just black turtlenecks, just for those who might be wondering.
well, that is good to know. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you again for sharing your presentation with us. We're really excited to unpack pieces of that as well. I just want to start off with a question, from one marketing major to another, how did you get into the tourism industry? It's such a really, really interesting industry, and I'm curious how you dug into that.
Jillian, I appreciate that question. Most people, including myself, even today, know very little about the hospitality industry. Again, they normally think hotel, restaurant, and honestly, I was working for an organization called the Savannah Economic Development Authority, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau was literally across the hall. And my mentality was, I don't want to do, I just wasn't interested. I know that tourism was a huge part of the economy, but I really did not understand, nor was I interested in that organization or the opportunities. The CEO was on the board of directors and approached me about it. And I kind of was like, I'm just not interested in that. And the thing that's so different today versus then, Jillian, is that we didn't have web, the World Wide Web and all these other opportunities to pretend like we know what we're talking about and then look it up. I just thought it was something that was not for me. I did not want to be a tour guide, and I really was totally ignorant. But as time went on and I started thinking about the things that I was really interested in terms of a career, I really realized that this is an opportunity, after I did more research, to really get into something that I really enjoy, which is travel domestically and internationally. So I joined that organization. Fortunately, 6 months after this guy approached me about it, and he waited for me. And that doesn't always happen. So it was a great opportunity.
Great, wonderful. Well, that's awesome. And it's great how some early experiences kind of extend into your career, which is great. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
So another question that came in is around your Deltasig experience. So how did when you were in college, your collegiate Deltasig experience prepare you for the work that you do today?
Because of all of the business aspects of Delta Sigma Pi and being in a school of business, Savannah State University is an HBCU, historically Black college and university. However, the School of Business was probably 80% white, 20% Black back then. And so therefore it was an island within itself. And our chapter leader, Swanee Richards, who unfortunately passed away last year in her late 90s, was very bullish on giving us an opportunity to compete, to have options and access to others within the business world, simply because business is so diverse. Someone getting a business degree, there's so many different options in terms of what you can do. And being able to be a part of Delta Sigma Pi, meeting others, and subsequently graduating and staying relatively involved was a good opportunity to build relationships with others beyond social fraternities, which I happen to be a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, which is a social fraternity, which is important as well. So it was a good juxtaposition between one and the other that really has lent itself to me being able to be successful within the business world.
That's fantastic. I think that's super important. And I think, one other question that came in that sort of extends on what you just shared is around how collegiate chapters can embrace their work to improve DEI on their campuses and their chapter operations and just interactions with one another. So what advice do you have on that?
Well, I think the key thing is that, one, no one has all the answers. And two, because we were all raised with different influences and backgrounds, we have to recognize perhaps things that we're a part of or biases that we may have that we might be not aware of, that we actually hold these biases. I'll never forget talking to a group of CEOs, and these are folks that run billion-dollar companies as chair of U.S. Travel Association, and said, if you really want to learn more about yourself, go home and talk to your kids and your grandkids about what they think of you. When you're talking to CEOs, there tends to be a sense of, no CEO wants to be exposed or seem to not be in the know. But when one of them called me back 2 days later and said, I talked to my kids, and my kid said, yeah, Dad, you say racist stuff all the time. And he was shocked. He says, he had no idea. And he says, what are you talking about? And his kids just started talking to him about the things he says that they don't agree with. And so the aha moment for him was he was totally not aware of his own biases and the things he said and how his family perceived those things. So the challenge in the collegiate level is to have similar conversations. These conversations are not very comfortable, but they're very, very important. And I think that it's an opportunity to talk to the leadership within the university system, those that are the campus advisors for the fraternity, and then have conversations amongst yourselves. And make sure that when you're having these conversations, that even if you have to look outside of the fraternity to find diverse perspectives, do that. And then understand what is important in terms of doing better. I happen to be a Black man that grew up, was born on the West Coast, moved to the South at 14 years old, and was exposed to a lot of things, including my grandparents' perspective. My dad interracially married after my parents divorced, and my grandma kept asking me as a kid, you're not going to marry a white woman like your dad. And I was very upset by that, but I had to realize that this was a woman that was born at the turn of the century that had experienced a lot of negative things as a Black woman. But those things also made me who I am in terms of how I dealt with white people in a business environment. And I have to have those conversations if I really want to do better and get people to understand. It has to happen on both ends, but it also ties to understanding some of the dynamics of how you were influenced by people that you were raised with, how media has influenced you, and all those other things. And it's really important that it start at the collegiate level, because so many people today, especially after last year, of all colors and of all ages, especially the younger generations, are more proactive and trying to understand and do better.
That's phenomenal and wonderful advice, Elliott. Thank you. Sort of going off of that same question a little bit, our questions are great that are coming in from the audience. Kind of building on that, we have a lot of alumni on the line as well that are watching. And so we're curious, and so we have, a number of leaders in the business community and, collegiate leaders as well, with our college students watching as well. So what advice do you have for leaders or aspiring leaders to lead with diversity in mind and to, acknowledge that?
Yeah, absolutely. A very good question. And hello to the whole diaspora of people on the Zoom. I think it's really important to understand that, I applaud organizations that have someone that focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in most cases, large organizations have had positions like that for a long time. But the disconnect is having that person not report to you, the CEO, or not have direct access to those that are really influencing the company. For me, talking to my peers within the U.S. Travel Association, but then there's a subcomponent called basically the $1 Billion Roundtable. And these are people that run the $1 billion organizations, the Marriotts, the Hyatts, the Hiltons, cruise lines, and everyone else. There's no diversity within that group. But to be able to talk to them and get them to understand that, look, you could say that this is a priority, but your actions speak louder than your words, and the people that work for you may not feel comfortable in calling you out on how complacent you are in terms of what you think you're doing and or your lack of interest or involvement in these issues. But that's a good way of losing some really good people, because you got to walk the walk and talk the talk. I was asked a week or so ago to talk to the sales force at Delta Airlines. And I lived in Atlanta for a long time, so I know a lot of people within Delta. And I was like, okay, it's Black History Month. You want me to talk to the group of people there? I said, if you want me to talk about Black History Month, I'm not the guy. I said, but if you want me to talk about why the experience as a Black person is important and why it should be important, especially in America, which is separate from diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is extremely important, because to me, the Indian community, all of the international communities, those with handicaps, LGBTQ, all that is a part of the conversation. I said, but quite frankly, as you look at the history of the Black community or the Native American community in America, there are opportunities to learn and to understand what is necessary as we are all working to do better. I've worked in organizations whereas I had leadership that really thought they were doing the right thing. And I was, young and naive. And as I said, I was taught to not challenge and not disrespect. And plus I'm former military. So, there's a chain of command. The aha moment for me last year is that was the wrong message. I have to unlearn that. And as I say to the younger community, do it respectfully, but challenge people. As I say to CEOs and others that are on this call, understand that one, you might have great intentions, but your actions of the past and or what you're doing now may not resonate in a way where it's truly making a difference. And you have to understand that. And you have to have that diversity that's within the ranks that can give you advice as to what you should be doing, perhaps the things you've done wrong, and call you out. My team calls me out all the time. I'm a Black man representing a city called DC, which was known as Chocolate City. And I get, and I get challenged in terms of what we're doing to continue to focus on promoting the African-American community, the Black community in Washington. And I'm like, how could that be? I feel like I'm very, very much in tune. However, that's an opportunity for me not to just listen to what's being said, but challenge myself and my team to think about it through a different lens. Not everyone's right, but at the same time, if you hear it more than one time, they're probably not wrong. And I think that that's the advice I'd give to those that are on the call, especially those who are in leadership positions.
That's fantastic advice. And I love how you mentioned being willing to challenge the status quo and challenge others' opinions and thoughts too. That's something I myself as a leader am working on right now. Because the company that I work for has set that as one of our goals for the year, which is really neat to see, but wonderful. And then we have a few minutes left. I'd love to ask some career focused questions for you too. So what advice do you have for students that are interested in joining the hospitality and tourism industry?
I would say, first of all, it's probably one of the best career moves I've ever made. I've always loved travel. My family traveled when I was growing up, mostly domestically, but my dad's from the Bahamas. So we spent a lot of time there. I would say really look into the opportunities and how vast the industry is as a whole. You have me as a contact that can help you in terms of, hey, this is what you can do. These are the opportunities that are there, be it international and what have you. And get them to understand more than what I understood, 30 plus years ago in terms of, I don't want to work in a hotel. I don't want to work in a restaurant. There's nothing wrong with either of those, but there's so many other options. I know that Hope Smith, who's a part of our team here in membership and partnership, she's a brother. She's on this call now. She went to, she's Alpha Delta at Nebraska, and she's a part of the team. A lot of people just don't understand the dynamics and the diversity of this industry. And there's so many different opportunities, at your fingertips. You can just type it in, find out what the Convention and Visitors Bureau is in your own backyard, and just start exploring, going from there. And then start asking a lot of questions, because again, unlike me, it's so easy to learn so much more about what an industry offers than in the 80s when there was no web. But also you have access to some amazing people within the industry that are brothers that will also be able to give you some important guidance.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And now hopefully a fun question for you. What are some of your favorite locations to visit in DC, or favorite attractions?
Yeah, my favorite attractions are all the things that are really outside. I love the parks in Washington. Washington is one of those cities where we're so misunderstood because of the federal experience, and we've got great monuments, memorials, and museums, and there's nothing better than going to them at night. What you see behind me is one of my favorite, the Korean War Memorial, which at night it takes on a new life, a new feel of its own. I love going bike riding around Washington, D.C. because it's such an amazing place with the two rivers, so walkable. There are only 700,000 people that live in D.C. and it's less than 15 miles wide and long. So it's not a very big city, but there's so many great things to see and do outside. The memorials are great. The parks in Washington, D.C. are great. And, getting on a bicycle and riding around, or going on a canoe ride, or paddle boating on the Potomac River or on the Anacostia. Those are some of my favorite things to do.
That's great. That's great. And then, obviously you shared this in your presentation. We're in the middle of a pandemic, which is really impacting DC and many other cities as well. And, thinking about that, what is Destination DC doing to prepare for when tourists are able to return? Are you guys thinking about that? I would imagine hopefully quite a bit.
I better be thinking about that, Jillian.
Yeah.
I think we all went from the shock mode to, at the beginning in February of March of last year, to being very concerned and afraid. And now we're in a more proactive mode of, okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Well, we all went into the mode of trying to survive, because my funding is tied to people staying in hotels and membership. And guess what dried up when the pandemic hit? But it was a global thing. So all of my peers globally, and I talk to all of my peers on a regular basis, we were all faced with the same thing. So we were trying to keep the lights on, trying to keep our team intact, and then also trying to focus on recovery. And the positives that Washington has to offer: 100 free things to see and do, 16 free Smithsonian's is free. If you've been financially challenged, and you're ready to go out and explore somewhere, DC is a good option because it's cheaper. So all of our promotions are tied to the 50 million people that live within 250 miles of DC. And we'll be doing that as soon as we feel that we're at a point where the city is reopening. The global community, there's no opportunity there right now. As we know, there are no international flights coming into, we're very few. So therefore, as we look at that component of what we focus on, they stay longer and spend more. So we want them to rebound faster. But the reality is it's probably going to be another 18 months or so before we see that. So it's all about being proactive, looking at ways in which we can reopen, educate folks as to what to expect when they come to Washington, D.C., putting safety first, and then, of course, talking about all the great things they can see and do.
That's great. That's great. And, right now, I'm curious, one question that came in is, DC is still there right now. There's probably still lots of things to do. What would you recommend for those willing to visit DC right now?
Well, the nice thing about coming to the city, even when the city is shut down, the monuments and memorials are open to the public still. They're, you can socially distance. We've got so many of them, and it's such a great thing to see and do. And that's what we've been, if you go to our website, washington.org, you'll see how we're promoting things you can see and do in Washington and socially distance. The museums that have reopened, none of the Smithsonian's, but beyond the Smithsonian's, there's some amazing museums, the Spy Museum, the Museum of the Bible, and the list goes on and on. They're all open, and there are a lot of great things in which you can, ways in which you can come to the city and explore some of those opportunities. And of course, dining, even though you're limited to 25% within a restaurant, you still can physically eat in a restaurant, and those restaurants are open again. So those are the things in which we're encouraging folks to do on a day like today, when it's sleeting and snowing and all the other stuff. It's not as appealing, but we have better days. We have greater days ahead of us. And when the weather's great, DC is still a wonderful place to come and do it safely.
Wonderful. Well, that's great to hear. And then one final question. We've had so many questions, and thank you for rolling with these. I think the audience has done a wonderful job of submitting them, and we'll collapse a list of them and see if we can get any answers afterwards as well. But one final question we wanted to run with is, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give Pledge Elliott, Elliott in college, and advice to your younger self?
I would say that one, usually with fraternities and sororities, with the exception of primarily Black fraternities and sororities, once an individual graduates, they are not as actively involved. And I say that there's a distinction between Black fraternities and sororities, and that's just another story, but it's true. I wish I had stayed more actively involved in Delta Sigma Pi, and I have been over the last few years, thanks to Shonda and Jillian. Thank you for this opportunity, and talking to Tricia and Onuka and of course Bill and his advice and jokes. These are things I wish I had done years ago in terms of remaining actively involved. I will say those that I pledged with, like the mayor of Savannah, Georgia, Van Johnson, is a member of Delta Sigma Pi, and we pledged together. He's also a member of my social fraternity. So I am in touch with quite a few of the brothers that I pledged with, and we continue to support each other. But I would encourage you all to find out who, and when I won the award in 2018, the Career Achievement Award, suddenly I've heard from all these brothers that I've known for a long time, but did not know that they were brothers. And I'm like, wow, I wish that we had connected on that level 10 or 15 years ago when we knew each other, because it would have made a big difference. Brotherhood, there's something about brotherhood that I will say is extremely important and very much and near and dear to me. I wish that I had done more and reached out to others beyond those that I pledged with, simply because there's great opportunities and a great opportunity to learn more about different industries and just build relationships.
That's great advice. I'm sure all of our audience is taking copious notes there. That's fantastic.
And I will
Thank
say
you
the last
so
year,
much.
no, Jillian, I will say one last thing. Last year, I was at the leadership meeting in Ohio, and I appreciated the number of the young brothers that reached out to me afterwards, and I still stayed in touch with quite a few of them. And I'm like, there's a lot of you on the Zoom, and there's just one of me, and my executive assistant Rico's on here. He'll tell you that I try to respond to everyone because I definitely want to remain accessible. You'll find that with other members of the fraternity, and a good segue is to reach out to me if you want to meet someone else, because that's really what it's all about. It's about networking, it's about connecting, and that's really how most business is done. And that's why we're looking forward to getting back to in-person meetings, because for us, it's all about those in-person connections that are extremely important.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm sure Shanda Gray on the line is also cheering for that as well, along with many others. So thank you so much, Elliott. Everything that you shared, from diversity, equity, and inclusion to leadership advice, and great information about DC. It was all wonderful and so helpful. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Jillian, it's definitely my pleasure, and I hope you all have a great Valentine's Day weekend and President's Day, and stay safe.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
All right.
Next, I'm thrilled to introduce Onuka Ibe, our past Grand President, who will kick off our continued lead event.
All right, thank you, Jillian, and thank you, Elliott, for the great perspective and advice. As a resident of the DC area, I'm very much looking forward to those better days that are ahead of us. I want to thank everybody that's joining us today. Now, we've all had to adjust in different ways as a result of the pandemic, and today's lead event is no exception. Despite the challenges and trade-offs of operating in a largely virtual manner over almost the past year, I'm happy to report that Delta Sigma Pi continues to offer the engagement opportunities valued by our members. In January, we held our third annual Collegiate Chapter President's Academy. While virtual, engagement was high and feedback about the experience was very positive. In addition to the leadership development curriculum, the Academy included alumni professional speakers and a panel of fraternity volunteers and staff. Attendees came away with tangible tips, tools, and strategies to enhance their chapters. A number of attendees were attending their second President's Academy, having been re-elected to a leadership role, and they shared very positive comments about the connections they made with other attendees despite the virtual format. In addition to today's special lead event, we continue to figure out new ways to provide those opportunities that have often been part of our in-person lead conferences. This includes Deltasig University, a collection of e-learning modules and webinars aimed at supporting the professional, personal, and fraternal growth of Deltasigs. Resources include COVID-19 resources, modules for collegiate chapter officers, and our certified Deltasig leader program for our alumni. Please visit the website to view resources, see upcoming webinars, or to access recordings of past sessions.
You can also join the Deltasig Learn and Lead online community to access these same resources, as well as to network and connect with other Deltasigs. Another change this spring is we'll have virtual provincial council meetings. If your council is debating legislation and you haven't done so already, I highly encourage you to review the proposed changes and discuss with your chapter, your district director, regional vice president, or provincial vice president, so that your delegate to the council can come informed to make decisions. And whether you're a delegate or not, you may register to attend the council meetings via the fraternity website. Part of this summer's Grand Chapter Congress will be the election of a new set of regional vice presidents and board members to serve for the next 2 years. I serve as the nominations chair as the immediate past Grand President, and I'm excited to share that we have a record number of candidates nominated this early in an election cycle. Their biographical and platform information is listed on the website, and the list of candidates is updated weekly as new nominations are received. Please take the time to review the candidates for races your chapter delegate would vote on, and use the contact information in their published bios to reach out to learn more about them. Those interested in running for office can find relevant policies and a nomination form on the website as well. And if you have any questions about nominations, campaigning, or elections, please feel free to reach out to the nominations committee at nominations@dsp.org. As Brother Ferguson said, it pays to take advantage of building relationships with other Deltasigs whenever we can. And so I invite you to join us for networking at 3:15 p.m. Eastern today to connect with our fellow Deltasigs throughout our brotherhood. Links and details will be on a slide at the end, but you can also find the information in the DSP Link app and on the dsp.org website calendar. Now, this event, whether in person or virtual, is all about leadership. But leadership isn't about a title. I want to share with you the same challenge that I shared with attendees of the President's Academy in January. Leadership isn't just about accomplishing goals, but about bringing out the best in people. And to do that, we need to look beyond those who are vocal, who sit up front, who speak first, or who volunteer. There are people all throughout your chapters that have vision, talent, and innovative ideas. People that have much to offer, but may need to be asked or nudged. We need to see those people who may not feel seen and broaden our circles to include them. We need to provide opportunities for people to feel supported enough so that they'll take a chance and stretch themselves and advance along their own leadership journey in ways that provide lasting benefit to them individually, as well as ensure that the leadership of your chapter and of our fraternity reflects and represents the membership. It is a tremendous honor to have served as Delta Sigma Pi's first Black Grand President. But my election came with a great weight on my shoulders. There hasn't been a single day since I announced my candidacy 8 years ago that I haven't been aware of how I'm currently an outlier in our history. We all have a duty to ensure our chapter and national leadership best reflect our wonderfully diverse membership. Every one of us has a role to play in ensuring a diverse set of board members and national volunteers is our normal, and that it doesn't take another several decades to elect our second Black Grand President or our first Asian, Latinx, or Native American Grand President, among other yet to come firsts. Developing members that value diversity and lead accordingly is the best legacy we can leave for an organization. And it's the best way that we can leave any group better than we found it. But it takes work, especially to find and encourage those leaders who don't yet realize they're leaders, to meaningfully include those voices that are missing from the conversation, to be able to be open to feedback and recognize when we fall short, and to change policies, practices, and power dynamics that prevent our members from bringing their full selves to the fraternity experience or prevent them from seeing their own identities reflected in fraternity leadership. Take a moment to think about the experiences, conversations, activities, and relationships that have shaped your life. Every interaction that we have with each other, no matter how big or small it may feel, matters. Many of you here today are evidence of that. And I'm excited to see how we can work together to ensure Delta Sigma Pi, that the Delta Sigma Pi experience for all of our members lives up to our stated ideals. Now, I'm excited to transition to a celebration of 5 outstanding collegiate leaders. It's time to honor the 2021 Provincial and National Collegians of the Year.
The Collegian of the Year award is awarded annually to one outstanding collegiate member of Delta Sigma Pi who exemplifies the values of the fraternity in both their professional and personal lives through their dedication to the growth of DSP, the care of their community, and the leadership style they possess.
It was first presented in 1971 to brother Robert Matthews and to the first female brother, Tricia Drew, in 1979. And since the split of the Mid-American province in 2001, the South Central province finally won the national title in 2019.
And now there's two of us. Back to back years.
So as your 2019 Collegian of the Year,
and your 2020 National Collegian of the Year,
we're proud to be your voice on the Board of Directors tables, talking to collegians weekly about what they're passionate about in DSP,
what improvements they like to see for good and growth of us all,
and sitting around just swapping stories.
We can honestly say that being National Koi was everything we dreamed it to be.
We get to travel.
Well, virtually.
And meet new people.
Virtually.
And present to hundreds of brothers all over the world.
Virtually.
Okay, you're really bringing down the mood.
I never said virtually was bad.
In the last 5 years, National Collegians of the Year have led projects such as the new pledge program that you all use today, the new Koi Instagram at Deltasig Koi,
the path of recruitment done virtually,
the 2021 National Recruitment Video,
the pilot program for the Koi Committee,
as well as being in the room during some of the toughest decisions that the National Board of Directors have ever made.
It's one of the most time-consuming, late-night working, 582 document page reading, rewarding, humbling, and inspiring leadership positions you could ever serve in. And we are so excited to see who's next.
Okay, who's ready for some awards? As you all know, the Collegian of the Year award is the highest honor that a collegian can receive, which is why it is such an honor to be presenting the North Central Provincial Collegian of the Year award today. This brother exemplifies what it means to be an ideal member. While in Delta Sigma Pi, they have held multiple positions, helped on ritual teams, and numerous committees. They've attended 5 national events, and honestly, they're a true leader on and off campus. Beyond Delta Sigma Pi, they've been involved with Bloomington Jefferson Baseball and Honors Society. He's got a 3.91 overall GPA, 4.0 within his accounting major. He studied abroad and has held 2 internships. If chosen for the National Collegian of the Year, their hope would be to better the fraternity is to grow through expansion and help find ways to reduce the financial burden on students. And expansion is something they know about. They took the initiative to start a colony after transferring to another university after already being initiated as a Delta Sig brother earlier on in their college career. They were there with the colony from the very start. They led with perseverance, persistence, and passion. After the colony's installation date was interrupted multiple times due to the pandemic, they kept morale high until the successful installation of the Omega Phi chapter at the campus of St. Ben's and St. John's in Minnesota. He even served on the ritual team. How cool is that? Okay, it's my honor to present to you our North Central Provincial Collegian of the Year, Andrew Nowinski, Omega Phi, St. Ben's, St. John's.
I have had the honor of getting to know this brother over the past 3 years and have had the privilege of seeing them grow, not only within Delta Sigma Pi, but also within their university and the other organizations they are a member of. This brother continues to inspire me and exemplifies what it means to be an ideal member of Delta Sigma Pi. While in Delta Sigma Pi, they have held a total of 8 positions and attended 5 national events. They are a Leadership Foundation donor, a scholarship recipient, and have even attended the Delta Sigma Pi Board of Directors meetings virtually. Even before the pandemic, this individual was motivated about our organization. They were working within their chapter and region to truly make an impact. This individual made invaluable connections while attending President's Academy and had used those relationships as a catalyst to create new networks, share ideas, and has even presented on recruiting and other topics at regional conferences in other regions throughout the province. During COVID, this brother has challenged their chapter to take the COVID experience of virtual meetings and make sure they thrive in it. As president of their chapter, this individual spent hours upon hours reaching out to the over 100 brothers in their chapter to ensure that they were all a support for one another, as well as creating new programming for the chapter to flourish in. They held professional event after professional event, with 90% of brothers attending, recruited 33 new pledges, and inspired their entire region by sharing their enthusiasm and passion for the fraternity. Imagine doing all of this and still having time for other organizations. Beyond Delta Sigma Pi, they're currently involved with 7 of their campus organizations. One they're particularly proud of is the Dean's Undergraduate Advisory Board, where they helped create an advisory board to close the communication gap between senior administration and students in the college. Over the past year as president of their chapter, this individual helped lead the chapter to numerous regional, provincial, and national awards within the fraternity, in addition to being recognized as Outstanding President of the Year within their business school and the chapter being recognized as Outstanding Organization of the Year. If chosen for National Collegian of the Year, their hope is to better the fraternity by creating a VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion as part of the executive committee for each chapter, to educate brothers on better recruiting, unconscious biases, social justice, and creating a more inclusive environment for all. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to present to you the Western Province's Collegian of the Year, Brennan Fetter.
Now it is time for the South Central Provincial Collegian of the Year Award to be announced. This brother exemplifies what it means to be an ideal member. While in Delta Sigma Pi, they have held multiple officer positions, including as Vice President of Alumni Relations, Pledge Education, and as President. Plus, they even served on the National COVID-19 Task Force for Ritual. This brother has attended 6 national events, including President's Academy, Grand Chapter Congress, and multiple leads. This past summer, this brother interned for the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, is currently a graduate assistant at our university, and has maintained a 4.0 GPA in school. Since becoming a brother, she has devoted herself to her chapter and our fraternity. And in return, she says she has gained countless friends, mentors, memories, and opportunities. She says Delta Sigma Pi has developed her as a person, as a professional, and as a leader. Her passion for the fraternity lies in the fact that her personal purpose aligns with the fraternity's purpose, to give. She is beyond grateful for all that the fraternity has given her, which is why she continuously looks for different ways to serve her chapter and the national fraternity. If selected as the national Coley, she wants to assist in continuing to provide the opportunities she received for future generations to brothers, and work to provide more value at each stage of a brother's journey, whether that's recruitment, collegiate brother, a graduating senior, or an alumni. This brother is inspiring to have conversations with, has done a lot of good work for her chapter and the fraternity as a whole, and I am proud of all of her accomplishments. So, without further ado, it is my pleasure to present to you our South Central Provincial Collegian of the Year from the Kappa Omicron chapter at Missouri State, Caitlin Kaminsky. Congratulations, Caitlin. Well done. We look forward to celebrating with you soon in the near future.
It's time for the Southern Collegian of the Year Award to be announced. This brother exemplifies what it means to be an ideal member. And as the oldest in a family of 5, they have been practicing leadership skills throughout their lifetime. While in Delta Sigma Pi, they have held 3 positions on the executive committee, including SVP, president, and chancellor, and have attended 5 national events. Not only that, But they also created a director of recruitment position within the chapter to assist the SVP and a scheduling chair to help keep the chapter on track. We all need that. They also furthered officer training by facilitating weekly discussions on the Certified Deltasig Leader CDL modules. Beyond DSP, they've been involved with 6 of their campus organizations, including a number of honor societies such as Phi Kappa Phi, and was awarded a number of scholarships. Their membership in the Economics Club was spurred by a trip to the Federal Reserve in Philadelphia, where they decided to change their career path, focusing on a PhD in economics, with the goal of becoming a professor and policy advisor. All of this while holding down a corporate operations intern position. Their willingness to learn from mistakes and desire to improve are pillars of what make them a great leader. And if chosen for National COI, their hope is to better the fraternity in helping others realize their full potential in DSP and inspire them to learn, grow, and take on leadership roles. I was personally moved by their essays. Quotes like, "I consider myself a lifelong learner that never plans to stop growing professionally and personally," which is very much a motto of mine. They have vowed to continue this learning process and promise to always strive for excellence in their efforts if chosen as National COI. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to present to you our Southern Collegian of the Year, Benjamin T. Davis Jr. from the Zeta Theta chapter at Western Kentucky University. Woo! Everyone goes crazy! Congratulations, Benjamin. What an amazing honor.
All right, let's keep the awards rolling. Now it's time for the Northeastern Province Collegian of the Year award to be announced. This Northeastern brother exemplifies what it means to be an ideal member. While in Delta Sigma Pi, they've held multiple chapter positions, including President, Senior Vice President, VP Community Service, Chair of the Marketing Committee, and has served as a member on 7 different chapter committees. Beyond their local involvement in Delta Sigma Pi, they have also attended 5 national events, including Leeds, Provincials, and President's Academy, and have attended multiple other national fraternity virtual offerings this year. They are also a recipient of the Founders Memorial Undergraduate Scholarship from our Delta Sigma Pi Leadership Foundation, and have received numerous other on-campus scholarships. But they've not only balanced their support of and participation in Delta Sigma Pi programming, they've also been involved with multiple other on-campus organizations, including Women in Business, the Resolve Domestic Violence Prevention Center, and is a member of the New Student Orientation and Peer Mentorship programs. As an active leader in such organizations, they served as President and Vice President of Professional Development in Women in Business organization on campus, where this brother helped organize over 20 professional events to further women's positions in the corporate world and bring that education to their peer community on campus. Not only has she accomplished all this, she's done it while maintaining an exceptional GPA and while working an average of 30 hours per week. She's held internships at such companies as IBM, Van Eck Associates, Dynarex Corporation, and a variety of digital marketing and marketing analytics internship roles, and at other jobs at Starbucks and as a student facilitator in an on-campus program. But perhaps the most pertinent aspect of this award, however, is that she's a perfect example of someone who demonstrates the values and ideals of Delta Sigma Pi on an everyday basis. If she is chosen as National COI, she hopes to better the fraternity by increasing brother engagement for both collegians and alumni, and to honor our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's clear to me that she is eager to continue to be an active alumna once graduating in the spring, and I'm excited to see the inspiration that she can bring to others. Her passion for helping and assisting brothers is catching. So, without further ado, it is my pleasure to present to you our 2021 Northeastern Province Collegian of the Year, Madeline Elizabeth Tremblay, from Epsilon Lambda Chapter at Rochester Institute of Technology. Congratulations, Madeline, and great job. We look forward to celebrating with you at a future fraternity event.
So who's next?
Which one of you will join us in the most elite award that you can win as a Deltasig Collegiate?
Which one of you is ready to serve with our new board of directors to be elected in August?
Will it come from South Central again? Or will North Central take us by storm?
Maybe Northeastern will come to claim the crown, or Western will win for the first time in 7 years.
Well, maybe it'll be someone from Southern Province.
There's 13,129 collegians.
Over 150 of you guys applied.
5 of you won Provincial.
So now it's time to see who's joining us on the wall at Central Office.
Who will be the 2021 National Collegian of the Year?
Wow, thank you, Kristen and Cody, for that awesome intro. Congratulations to each of our Chapter Collegian of the Year nominees, to our regional winners, and now to our provincial winners. The Collegian of the Year program was made possible over 50 years ago by Mr. and Mrs. Sidney A. Sparks. And although we lost Brother Sidney Sparks many years ago, his wife Buttercup remained a dedicated and passionate supporter of Delta Sigma Pi, donating significantly over the years to our organization until her passing last year. Each year, we have the honor of recognizing one outstanding collegiate brother for their contributions, achievements, participation, and personal character. As has been stated in today's presentations, the Collegian of the Year Award recognizes an individual who exemplifies the values inherent in our ritual and perpetuates our ideals as set forth in our purpose. Our Collegians of the Year serve as role models, inspirations, and influencers to other brothers. They display and live our purpose and our principles, usually with enthusiasm, confidence, passion, and commitment. So hopefully you've had a chance to watch our regional winner announcements and you've just heard about each of our provincial winners. So it is my honor to announce our 2021 National Collegian of the Year, the highest honor that can be bestowed on a collegiate brother. Please join me in congratulating our 2021 National Collegian of the Year, Brennan Fetter, Gamma Psi, University of Arizona. As a national winner, Brennan will receive a $5,000 scholarship from the Delta Sigma Pi Leadership Foundation and serve a 2-year term on the Delta Sigma Pi Board of Directors. Congratulations, Brennan.
Congratulations again, Brennan. And with this exciting announcement, this concludes the 2021 Spring Lead. Thank you to all of our sponsors shown in the next few moments for their support and donations to make this possible. Please join us for networking at 3:15 p.m. Eastern today and for the Provincial Council meetings and other webinars in the next coming days. We can't wait to see you there and get to know you better. For timing on any of the upcoming sessions, please visit dsp.org for details. Thank you for attending today.